Yeah.
Yeah, there is, never mind. I'm ready.
Live stream to Facebook. I wonder if these have to be white or red.
Red means mute.
Okay.
But you are,
I think we're good.
that one is mute.
No,
This
this-
one is.
That was on. This
The
one's
main,
me.
you mean the panorama screen?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're on.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Thank you so much for coming today. We wanted to host this pedestrian and biking forum just to solicit some feedback, give you some feedback to the public as to what the borough has done, is planning, some information provided by our police department, engineering. We have a program called Vialytics, which we officially went with a contract with Vialytics for our road program, which is going to assist us with our capital infrastructure of our roads and identify some areas that need attention throughout the borough. So we also have Vialytics with us today. I'm just going to bring them in as a panelist. We are live streaming this and Zoom recording the meeting just so we can post it to our Facebook page and also our website. So it's available for those that couldn't make it tonight. Again, we want to solicit some feedback. We want to use the second half of this in order to do so. You're going to hear a couple different presenters tonight. Borough employees, our professional services, who I've asked to come tonight to give a brief overview of their involvement in this. So I'm going to ask, starting with Terrence, if you could just introduce yourself and your position with the borough.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terrence Walden. I'm the Public Works Director for Red Bank. Vialytics, my experience with Vialytics, working with Tom for Vialytics has been very interesting because it gives us an opportunity, like the borough manager says, to record data and go back and deal with the task at hand that is presented out there. Sometimes when you're out there on the road, you're doing work as a public works employee, a lot of things happen, and sometimes you may forget to include other people or log it or try to find a way to get the information out that needs to get corrected. So the Vialytics program allows us to record it in real-time data and give tasks to people within the department to be able to manage the tasks like potholes, sign replacement, various things around town that are able for, that we are able to address and kind of correct some of the things that have been outstanding in town. My experience with it has been challenging because it's something that the department has never seen. So that's the only thing that I see that is a little challenging, trying to introduce technology to an atmosphere that's never experienced this before. But I think it's going to be great, and it allows us to give feedback to each and every one of the department heads that are here are able to view everything that we record. So it's actually pretty interesting. So it's good.
Thanks, Terrence.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kristen Altamari. I work the traffic division here in the Red Bank Police Department. And just to piggyback off of what Terrence explained, I'm recently learning about the Vialytics program as well. And in a nutshell, if I can just kind of dumb down all of the technical verbiage he used, is it really bridges the gap between someone like myself who can get out on the road and identify bike lanes, crosswalks, stop signs, anything that needs to be replaced, repaired, repainted, added to this program, and it bridges the gap between somebody like myself and perhaps somebody in his department that carries out the task of completing it. So that's what we're working on here.
Great. Darren, and we'll just speed it up down the line.
No problem. My name is Patrolman Darren McConnell. Most of my experience with the police department has been involved in crash investigation, pedestrians, bicycles, vehicles as well. And I have some information to provide on some of the grants that police departments are working on.
Shauna E. Banks, Director of Community Development. I'm just here to talk about what's in our master plan, our 2023 master plan. and past planning initiatives regarding biking and pedestrian safety.
Great, thanks. And James Gann, again, welcome. Glad that everybody's here today, the Borough Manager. And we're happy to bring this information to you. And again, looking to solicit some feedback from you today as well.
Sure, Laura Newman, I'm the Borough Engineer with CME Associates. Myself, through Michael Reiser in my office, will present some of our past projects, some future projects, and some grant opportunities to discuss for the forum today.
So as Laura stated, I'm Michael Reiser. I've been working closely with Laura in the Borough of Red Bank for the past 4 years now. And like she said, we're going to go over the past projects, future projects, some of the bike lane requirements, as well as some future plans, which Sean is going to expand more on with the master plan and the biking loop study and some of the challenges associated with that.
And I just have Georgina on from Vialytics as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Georgina Cho. I'm here from Vialytics, and I'm just here to share a little bit about how we've been working with Red Bank and tell you guys how we can help support pedestrian movement and biking within your borough.
Georgina. All right, so without further ado, and not to take up any more time and get right into it, we want to have our Director of Community Development, Shauna Ebanks, address some of the master plan information from a planning perspective, which included the biking loop study that was done as well.
Hi,
Pull that
everyone.
a little closer.
So Red Bank has a street grid consisting of walkable blocks and features a nearly complete system of sidewalks. Due to the size of the borough, key destinations within the municipality are easily accessible by biking and walking. However, an official bicycle network within the municipality is very limited. The presence of on-street parking impacts the possibility of providing bike lanes within the existing curbs. In order to have a dedicated bike lane, parking would need to be removed or consolidated on the roadway that aren't wide enough to accommodate bike lanes and parking lanes. Only one bike lane exists which is Bridge Avenue between Chestnut Avenue and Dr. James Parker. In 2023, the borough, in partnership with Easy Ride, undertook a demonstration project called the Red Bank Porch Fest Bike Lane Project. The purpose of the initiative was to facilitate bicycling during the borough's Porch Fest to encourage cycling and showcase areas for permanent sharrows and bike lanes throughout the community. The route was from Dr. James Parker Boulevard, Hudson Avenue, Chestnut Avenue, and Layton Avenue. The borough's 2023 master plan recommends that the borough create a dedicated bike parking infrastructure and amenities. The plan recommends that the borough prioritize implementing bike routes outlined in the 2010 Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. The 2010 Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan was prepared by the borough and the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the purpose to establish a network of conceptual pedestrian and bicycle treatment projects and improvements. Based on the data and the community input, the following recommendations were made for bike lanes throughout the borough. The routes provide connections that are east to west, north to south, while being accessible to local attractions and destinations. So these are the highlighted areas for certain loops. So streets without parking, typically 32 feet with two 15 to 16 foot travel lanes, provide enough room to stripe a 5 foot minimum bike lane with two 10 to 11 foot travel lanes. Roadways that meet these criteria include Rumson, the north end of Branch, White Street to Little Silver, and Front Street east of Spring. Several more narrow streets, the end of Branch, Allen, and Grant, have parking lanes on both sides. These streets are typically 36 to 37 feet wide with two 11-foot travel lanes and 7 to 7.5-foot parking lanes on both sides. For bicycles to be accommodated on these streets, removing parking should be considered. If parking can be removed, no changes would need to be made to the traveling lanes, and a bike lane could be striped with the space gained on each side. Restricting parking, on-street parking from these roads may not create a serious hardship as parking appears to be lightly used. Several slightly wider streets, 38 to 40 feet, with 8-foot parking on both sides could accommodate a bike lane. If travel lanes were reduced from the existing 11 to 12 feet to 10 to 11 feet, and parking was consolidated to one 8-foot lane on one side, these streets appear to have lightly used parking. Candidate roads includes Harrison, Bergen, South, Pinckney, Chestnut, McLaurin, and River. Wide, very wide streets, which are 44 to 46 feet, could be restriped with more narrow travel lanes and a bike lane without the need to alter on-street parking. Bridge Avenue is an example where the 15-foot travel lane could be striped to 10 feet, allowing a 5-foot lane striped on either side of the travel lane. Existing 7 to 8-foot parking lanes adjusted to the curb would remain. The overall conclusion of the plan is that in order to accomplish an accessible and safe bicycle system throughout the borough, some narrow streets with on-street parking would need to be removed or consolidated in order to accommodate a designated bike lane. There's more information in the 2010 pedestrian plan, which can be found on the planning and zoning page. And that's about it.
Did you want to address anything about complete streets? And what the borough is looking to move towards?
So the borough, I just want to define what complete streets are. So the philosophy between about complete streets, that roadways should incorporate usage by all users, not only motorists, but bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit users.
And I think it's important to note that the adopted master plan of the borough from February, right? of
2023.
Right, states that the master plan should aggressively plan for and implement complete streets in Red Bank with a focus on downtown and key nodes of activity such as schools, bus stops, and retail areas. So that being a focus of the master plan, which is a 10-year plan, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
or more.
Or more.
Could
Which
be
we
up to 20.
adopted, right?
Yes.
So we review the master plan every 10 years. With constant review process, right, of what's working, what we're able to actually accomplish, what's feasible, what's not, getting feedback like this to determine if our goals are going to be able to be met. So the complete streets that we are trying to aggressively plan for comes out of meetings like this, comes out of the grants that we've attained, coming out of our professional services, looking at the engineering that's gone into place for this. So that's a goal of the borough. It's a goal of the governing body. So that's something that we continue to work towards.
And also just, we're in the process of recertifying ourselves as a silver community through Sustainable Jersey. And one of the, I guess one of the goals we're trying to accomplish, or one of the requirements, is to implement complete and green street policies and initiatives. So all of this is pretty much a part of it, is that we have to do outreach to the public. Council has to adopt resolutions and ordinances that support initiatives that can create streets that are safe for not just pedestrians, not just bikers, motorists also, and transit users.
Great. So I'm going to turn it over to our engineering, our professional services, CME. CME is the borough engineer who we've worked closely with on many of our projects in town. So I'm going to share the screen, Mike, just so everybody has access to that as well. Go ahead, Mike. There's a little bit of a delay from mine to there. There you go.
So just go to page one,
You can just go to.
either page one. Get bigger.
So again, I'm Michael Reiser with CME Associates, the Borough Engineer's Office, and as Jim stated, I'm just going to go through some of our past projects, future projects, the bike lane requirements, and some of the future planning that Shauna had touched on. So I'll start here with the past projects. Completed in about 2020 or 2021 was the East Bergen improvements. That included, in addition to roadway resurfacing, we did sidewalk improvements, ADA ramp improvements, and installed shared lane markings to share the road between bicycles and vehicles. Shortly after that, we completed the 2019-2020 NJDOT projects that included Broad Street, which included sidewalk improvements, ADA ramp improvements, as well as curb extensions or bump outs at several of the intersections there. And the goal of that was traffic calming to slow down vehicles, as well as increase sight distance for those pedestrians and overall just increase pedestrian safety in that downtown area. That project also included the Chestnut Street Railroad crossing, which was updated sidewalks and ADA ramps at that location, as well as the Bridge Avenue and Oakland Street intersection, which had new ADA ramps there as well. And then as Shauna mentioned, the borough did do pop-up bike lanes for the Porch Fest to encourage bicycle use during that event, and as well as increase safety for those bicyclists. From there, I'll move on to some of our future upcoming pedestrian and biking safety projects. The 2022 Safe Routes to Transit grant, which was for Monmouth Street between Broad Street and Shrewsbury Avenue, includes sidewalk improvements for that whole length. That includes updated sidewalks, ADA ramps, to increase pedestrian safety for those transit commuters to safely walk to the transit station. In addition is the 2023 Safe Routes to Transit grant, which includes the Bridge Avenue and Dr. James Parker Avenue intersection. That includes the relocation of crosswalks to the outer limits of the intersection to increase sight distance, as well as ADA ramp improvements and flashing pedestrian beacons at all four of those crosswalks to increase pedestrian visibility and make that intersection safer. Also included in that grant is the Bridge Avenue and Chestnut Street intersection. The plan is to replace crosswalks there with a red polymer cement surfacing, which will increase visibility for pedestrians. In addition, there will be additional warning signs placed at that intersection, as well as new ADA ramps. Another project that we're working on is the 2024 Safe Routes to Transit grant. We're still waiting to hear back whether we received that grant, but we're hopeful for that. And that includes the River Street and Layton Avenue intersection. That's going to include curb extensions or bump outs there with ADA ramp improvements, as well as solar powered pedestrian beacons to increase visibility and sight distance there, similar to what we're doing at Bridge and Dr. James Parker. And similarly, we will be redoing the Tilton Avenue and River Street intersection to include those same curb extensions. That intersection doesn't quite have the same volume as Layton Avenue, so that will not have solar powered pedestrian beacons. But I know that the hot ticket item and largest volume is at Layton and River Street. And then lastly included in that grant is the Branch Avenue school crossing. That will include new ADA ramps, new crosswalk, as well as solar powered pedestrian beacons there as well to increase safety for those pedestrians walking to school in that area. And Shauna touched on this, but I just wanted to expand on the bike lane design requirements. There's several manuals provided through the state and various different organizations that provide guidance on the installation of bike lanes. The ASTRO Guide for Development of Bicycle Facilities has a minimum parking lane width of 7 feet. 8 feet is preferred. The minimum bicycle lane width is 5 feet, but 6 to 7 feet is recommended when it's adjacent to narrow parking lanes, such as the 7-foot ones, or in areas with high turnover, such as restaurants, shops like we have here in downtown Red Bank. Also providing guidance is the Residential Site Improvement Standards, or RSIS, which provides guidance on the minimum cartway width. So that would be your travel lanes for your vehicles. The minimum cartway width for a two-lane road in a neighborhood area is 16 feet. And the minimum cartway width for a minor collector road is 20 to 22 feet. There's several factors that go into determining the classification for these roads, such as the volume of traffic as well as speed limits. So we'll be working with traffic safety to classify these roads and determine the minimum cartway width, for safe travel in these areas. Next is manual on uniform traffic control devices, which goes over signage and striping requirements for bike lanes, stop bars, crosswalks, and the distances between them that are required and reviewed for safety. In addition is the NJDOT bicycle compatible roadways and bikeways manual. In reviewing that, we were looking to hopefully apply for a bikeways grant this year to facilitate some of the master plan biking, but the NJDOT requires a minimum 1.5 foot separation between the biking lane and that travel width, which is additional width that's required in order to meet the requirements for that grant. So next, I'm going to go over some of those potential future plans that Shauna had mentioned in the master plan, as well as some of the challenges that we're facing with that. So the image shown there is essentially from that 2010 master plan or biking plan that Shauna had mentioned. And the two primary goals that the borough is focusing on is that loop 1 and loop 2 shown. So we started investigating this preliminary, and we found several of the streets didn't meet the minimum requirements, as Shauna stated. Dr. James Parker Boulevard is about 40 feet, South Street 38 feet, Branch Avenue 32 feet, Harding Road 48 to 50 feet, Reckless Place 32 to 40 feet, Maple Avenue is 40 feet, Chestnut Street 38 to 40 feet, and Bridge Avenue is 44 to 46 feet. So the absolute minimum required for a 2-lane road with parking on each side and 2 bike lanes is 40 feet. And that's on neighborhood roads that will have very narrow 8-foot driving lanes. So like I said, we'll be working with traffic safety to see what roads are classified as a neighborhood road. But for example, like Dr. James Parker Boulevard, I would think has the volume that's larger travel lanes are required. Closer to 10 to 12 feet for those. So we'll be working with the borough on alternative options for this, such as the shared lane markings, or perhaps removing parking or restricting parking in certain areas. Perhaps removing it on one side so that we could still have 2 lanes of travel, as well as 2 biking lanes that are adequate width to provide safety for all of those pedestrians. Yeah, I think that's about all I have.
Did you want to add anything?
So I think the key components, hearing from Michael's presentation, is essentially we have to evaluate the classification of our roads, which dictates the required cartway widths or the drive widths, and then see how best to incorporate the bike lanes or enhance pedestrian safety, like the crosswalks and the beacons, as was also testified to. I think it's nice to see the projects that the borough has moved forward with and the impacts those have, the ones for the future. And we're certainly looking forward to comments and feedback so we can continue to advance the goal of the borough and council.
And a couple of the areas that didn't necessarily make it to an engineering design, but is something that we're addressing with the county, because it's understanding, right? We have to work with our municipal, county, and state roads to accomplish a lot of this, which adds extra layers of government. And as you all know, we are so accommodating to making things very easy and efficient. But the extra layers have we've been able to navigate that a bit, especially with the county. The county's been very receptive to things that we've brought to their attention. In particular, Shrewsbury Avenue at the Senior Center, myself, Deputy Mayor Trigiano and Mayor Portman met with the commissioners there to discuss them improving that crosswalk from Monmouth over to Shrewsbury across to the Senior Center. So we feel pretty strong from our discussions with them that we have a commitment from the county to improve that crosswalk with, what's that? Right. And a couple of the other things that we've talked to them about are the signage and striping plan to be executed by Monmouth County at Riverside Gardens to cross West Front Street there. So they've already come up with a signage and striping plan that they're looking to execute. I've reached out to them just recently to see where we are with that. And also we have continued discussions with Monmouth County regarding Branch Avenue with crosswalk installations there. So there's some ongoing discussions with Monmouth County. Like I said, I feel very confident about the commitment with Shrewsbury Ave and the Senior Center. I think that's going to be very important, connecting both sides of town through that crosswalk. And then some other grants that we're looking into, which Mike has discussed with our DOT grants, Safe Routes grants, but we also received at the end of 2023 a Vision Zero grant, which is for an action plan. That action plan will analyze pedestrian safety measures required to reduce and ultimately eliminate pedestrian serious injuries and death. So we've received $120,000 through that grant to analyze and come up with a plan so that we can start incorporating all of this into a more robust plan across the entire borough. So we're thankful for that grant, $120,000 for that. And we're going to look to start moving on that plan rather quickly and see how that grant funding needs to be expended and what the requirements are for the reporting that go along with that grant funding as well. I'm going to turn it over to Georgina. She's just going to give us an overview of Vialytics. Again, Vialytics, we looked at from more of a comprehensive road program. I was going to say program, but website or actually like an actual hardware that we now have as the borough access to. But for this specifically, I asked Georgina to take a look at how Vialytics can help us with our pedestrian and our biking movement within the borough as well. So Vialytics does a number of different things, but specifically I asked Georgina to look into the biking and pedestrian movement. And Georgina, I'm just going to pull up your presentation as well.
Fantastic. All right. Let's see. Great. So I wanted to start by giving you all just a brief background on Vialytics and how we've been working with Red Bank. So Vialytics is an AI-powered system that allows us to assess the condition of your roads more quickly and more accurately than traditional methods. So if you look to the left, you'll see a picture of a road and you'll see all these colored boxes. Some of those boxes will say cluster cracks, open joint, surface patch. Those are different types of damages. And essentially these boxes are what the computer is seeing. So it's able to identify different types of damages, the severity of the damages, and the location of those damages. And it'll import all of that data onto a map, which what you'll see on the right. So if you scroll over to the right, you'll see a map which has all of Red Bank's road network as evaluated and graded through our system. So as a side note, all faces and license plates that are captured during road assessments are automatically censored from our images as per our privacy policy. We are a company founded in Germany, so we follow European data privacy standards, which are much more stringent than American standards. So we want to assure you that privacy is a top priority for us. You can go on to the next slide. Great.
Oops. There we go.
Great. So in terms of pedestrian movement and biking, one of the key ways that we actively support that is through traffic sign recognition. So during our road condition assessments, our system is also able to automatically detect and evaluate all of your traffic signs. So on the left, you'll see a map of all of Red Bank's pedestrian and biking traffic signs. So not only does our system keep a log of where all of your signs are located, it also evaluates the condition of each sign, whether they've been stickered, if they're obstructed from view by like a hanging tree branch, for example, or if they've been knocked down. So you can see on the right are 2 examples of signs that have been stickered, and we automatically detect these damages so that it can be brought to the attention of Public Works as soon as possible. We want to make sure that your traffic signs are all visible and in good shape for safety purposes. And if you look at the bottom of those 2 screens, you'll see 2 little buttons that say create task. That will lead me directly into my next point. So you can go to the slide right after that. Perfect. So I also wanted to talk about our streamlined task management system. So our goal here with our task management system is to help streamline the planning, execution, and maintenance of Red Bank's public works initiatives. So like Kristen mentioned earlier, a lot of times communications between different teams can eat up a lot of time, specifically between those who are charged with identifying areas in need of attention and those who are responsible for carrying out those tasks. So we're able to bridge that gap by allowing the public works team to assign someone a task and send all of the relevant information directly to their smartphone with just a click of a few buttons. You'll see on the left is just a brief overview of what someone who is assigned a task will see. They'll see the images of the task. They'll see the location, the status, and the due date, and all of this great information so that the assignee and the assigner are automatically connected. And you can go on to my final slide.
Nope.
Great. And then I also want to talk about some future developments, which relate very directly to the initiative we're talking about today. So later this year, we're also going to be able to automatically detect and evaluate the condition of pavement markings, such as crosswalks and bike lanes. So similar to what we currently do with traffic signs, our system will soon be able to automatically detect the location of different road markings, the condition of them, whether they're fading or not, if they need to be repainted, and plot them all on a map for the Public Works Department. So essentially our goal with this is to improve the road markings, improve visibility, and identify areas that need to be brought to the attention of Public Works. So that's all that I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you want to add anything, Jim, happy to hear that as well.
Thanks a lot, Georgina. And we'll move on to the police department and solicit questions right after that.
Great.
Good evening. Again, I'm Patrolman Darren McConnell. I wanted to speak to you briefly about some bicycle and pedestrian safety tips. Some of this might seem a little bit elementary. However, looking at some of the crashes we've had over recent years, a lot of them could be avoided, or the severity could certainly be reduced if some of these tips were followed, both on the part of pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists as well. First and foremost, I want to talk to everyone about bicycles and bicycle safety. Under New Jersey law, front and rear lights are required on bicycles at all times. Just anecdotally, driving around town, you don't really see that too often. So that's definitely an important factor, especially if you're going to be riding at night. An audible signal is also required under New Jersey law on all bicycles at all times as well. For bicyclists under the age of 17, bicycle helmets are required at all times. But it's definitely recommended for everyone, adults included, to wear a bicycle helmet when you're riding your bicycle. It can certainly help with reducing injuries when there is a crash involved. Bicycles under New Jersey law, for those of you who don't know, are actually considered vehicles. They're required to follow all the same responsibilities and rules of the road as a vehicle would be. That includes obeying all signals and signs, whether it's a traffic light, stop sign, what have you. That being said, bicycles are required to ride with traffic and also keep to the right at all times as well on roads. Bicycles have an obligation to signal to others if you're making a left turn, a right turn, or stopping. Additionally, it's recommended to wear high visibility or bright clothing on your bicycle, whether it's daytime or nighttime. Additionally, you want to check your bicycle each time before you take it out. Just do a safety inspection for the air in the tires, the brakes, the chain. It sounds a little bit, basic. However, that does prevent a lot of crashes as well, just from faulty brakes, not being able to stop in time, whatever the case might be. Additionally, we've seen a lot of accidents or crashes rather with bicyclists and vehicles, with parked vehicles opening their car doors. That's incumbent on both the bicyclist and the driver to ensure that they're looking out for that, whether it's a motorist exiting their parked vehicle, checking their side view mirrors for bicyclists, and also bicyclists being aware of that. If you're on a narrow street or you're close to a parked vehicle, just keeping that in mind that a vehicle door could open and cause a crash with a bicycle. Additionally, you want to check out as a bicyclist, anyone who rides a bike knows the road conditions are important. If there's potholes or debris in the roadway, that might not present a major issue for a vehicle, but if you're on a bicycle, it could certainly cause an accident or a crash. Additionally, something that would help the police department greatly, as well as family members, is just carrying in case of emergency contact, whether it's in your phone or on your person, for bicycles and pedestrians as well. In the event that there's a crash, we know who we can contact. Additionally, I wanted to talk briefly about e-bicycles and e-scooters. There's a lot of confusion on this topic in general across the board. They're newer devices that we see on the roads a lot. Number one, bicycles, whether motorized or not, are not prohibited on sidewalks in the Borough of Red Bank anywhere. So they should always be in the street, but it's especially hazardous when it's a motorized bicycle on a sidewalk. Now it's doing 20 miles an hour. Vehicles pulling out of a driveway or side street, not expecting that. You might be looking for a pedestrian, and then you don't see the motorized bicycle at that speed or expect it to be in that location. New Jersey has different classes of e-bikes, class 1, 2, and 3. Class 3 bicycles are not allowed on the streets. They do over 28 miles an hour. They're not allowed in New Jersey on public roadways. Motorized bicycles that can do up to 28 miles an hour do require registration and insurance. And also helmets are required on motorized bicycles. The low-speed electric bicycles and low-speed electric scooters require helmets for under 17 years old, similar to a bicycle. Again, they can't be utilized on the sidewalk either. Those specific ones do not require license or registration. That's just some important information I feel that is beneficial, especially for parents with children that have these e-bikes. Just understanding some of the laws, some of the bicycles available for sale don't clearly label what class they are. If it doesn't have the class and it doesn't meet the requirements for the wattage and the speed, then it's going to be, it's not going to be able to be used on public roadways. A lot of these e-bikes that are available for sale will do much more than 28 miles an hour. They're readily available on Amazon and other sites. So just to keep that in mind, those are not permitted on roadways in New Jersey. I want to touch on some pedestrian safety. As everyone knows, pedestrian safety is really the responsibility of the drivers and pedestrians. It's really incumbent upon both parties involved to be looking out for one another and understanding the laws and the rights of way on the roadway. Pedestrians have rights of way at crosswalks and intersections at all times. Whether it's a marked or unmarked intersection crosswalk, the pedestrian has the right of way, and the vehicle is required to stop and yield the right of way to pedestrians in those circumstances. As a driver, it's especially important to be attentive for the pedestrians that could step out suddenly. As we all know, not everyone utilizes a crosswalk. It's important to keep an eye out for those. We certainly have had a number of crashes where that's the case. Additionally, as a pedestrian, you want to be attentive for those inattentive drivers on the roadway. You see someone who's looking the other way, not paying attention, utilizing an electronic device, whatever the case might be. We see that. Obviously, we don't want to be stepping out in front of those kind of vehicles. We want to try to make eye contact, make sure the vehicle is actually stopping for us before we step into that crosswalk and try to cross the street. When I go to the schools to do presentations, I always stress to the students that the vehicles take a lot longer to stop than the pedestrians do. So if you see someone who's not yielding the right of way, yes, they're required to. Unfortunately, not everyone does, but you can stop a lot quicker and get out of the way a lot more easily if you see a vehicle that's not going to yield the right of way to you. Additionally, as a pedestrian, you want to use the push buttons and wait for the walk signals or the green signals at signalized intersections. Additionally, if we have the intersection that we do have the pedestrian signal beacons, you want to utilize those when you can. They're there for your safety, and it really does help to stop the vehicles from what I've seen. Additionally, as a pedestrian, you want to walk on the sidewalk if possible. If you have to walk or run in the roadway, you want to run or walk against traffic so you can see the vehicles as they're approaching you. That's different from the bicycles. Additionally, I want to just stress the bright and reflective clothing day or night, and also carrying a light with you if you're going to be out walking or running at nighttime. It starts to get dark, especially in the fall time. Finally, I just wanted to touch upon some of the grants and partnerships that the police department specifically is involved in. We have a distracted driving grant, generally on a yearly or an annual basis under the New Jersey You Text, You Drive, You Pay grant, which is an enforcement grant targeting distracted driving behaviors. Additionally, we have an annual pedestrian safety grant. We've had that every year since 2021. We're currently undertaking that grant as we speak right now, which involves enforcement as well as education and engineering approaches as well. We also, the Red Bank Police Department, usually about twice a year, past few years, we've conducted pedestrian decoy operations at different intersections throughout town that have been problematic, whether it's crashes or seeing dangerous driving behavior, not yielding to pedestrians. We'll conduct this with plainclothes officers who attempt to cross the street when motorists don't yield the right of way within those requirements, which are very specific based on the stopping distances. We conduct traffic stops with those vehicles and take enforcement action. Additionally, the police department works with Safe Roads to School, Easy Ride, and Street Smart New Jersey for different pamphlets, signage, and presentations through our schools. We also have been conducting a Goal Zero cooperation with various Monmouth County police departments, which target aggressive and unsafe driving behavior on specific roadways. Highway 35 has been one that has been the focus of some of our efforts. And finally, the police department conducts 2 annual bicycle light giveaways at the train station, once in the spring, once in the fall. And we give away and install bicycle lights for free during those times. So keep an eye out for that. That's all I have.
I just have one follow-up question for you, because I may have misheard you. You did say that bicycles are prohibited on these sidewalks, right?
Yes.
That's okay. Just wanted to clarify. But you can walk your bicycle.
You can walk your bicycle. Yes, that's right.
Right, I just might have misheard you. I apologize.
Did everybody hear that question? Okay. And, one of the other things to emphasize too in the borough that I know the police department works as a partnership with Easy Ride and the Red Bank Environmental Commission as well to provide education. I know we addressed some of those partnerships here. So I think that, Officer McConnell said that it seems elementary that we say this stuff, but I just don't think you can ever say it too much. I think it's important to hear this. It's important to hear what the rules of the road are. Quite honestly, I'm hearing some of the things. I'm like, yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So I think it's important to hear it because we take some things for granted when we're either walking, biking, jogging. So to know what everybody's responsibility is, I think is really important. Right before we get into public feedback, which we want to hear about, I know we're kind of coming up on it, but we want to make sure that we're available too. I did want to recognize that Lieutenant Broadley's in the room with us as a member of the command staff. So I appreciate his presence here today. Deputy Mayor Kate Trigano's with us. Our council members, Laura Janone, Ben Forrest, Christina Bonatakis, David Cassidy, and Nancy Facey Blackwood are with us tonight as well too. So I want to turn it over to the public and hear from you. If you have any feedback, questions, anything we need to follow up on, please. And just if you don't mind, just projecting for us so that we can.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Nobody mentioned the sidewalks. They're ragged, they're broken, there's poison ivy growing out of the hedges grow 3/4 of the way over the sidewalks. Is there a program for it? But then I hate to say that because y'all will come, I don't want to come along and, swipe out all the shade trees, but is there work on cleaning up the sidewalks?
So we constantly address issues with the shade trees. Shade trees, of course, everybody does, right? But they cause sidewalk issues. By ordinance, sidewalks are, and the adjacent property owners are the sidewalk maintenance is the responsibility of the property owner. It's not the responsibility. With something like that, where there's ivy growing onto the sidewalks, there's overgrowth, there's branches. Aside from our code enforcement driving around, please forward that stuff through our GovPilot system through code enforcement to have that addressed.
I'm curious, this is every single meeting that we go through this. Can you show how you go to the website, redbanknj.org?
I
And
promise
where the-
to go look.
Yeah, it's every meeting. I just want people to see where the code enforcement thing is to fill out. And where it is, because a lot of the issues people have, they can just file right through there and get it to the.
Shoot a screen.
parts.
Yeah.
That's.
So the, obviously just accessing Red Bank website.
NJ.org.
So redbanknj.org and just have a couple pop-ups here. You go to departments, government departments, and then code enforcement. Yep, I'm working on a glare too.
Might be better on the homepage.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have so much trouble finding it.
Yeah. So you would report a concern to code enforcement or property maintenance. And the status of the report, you usually get email updates when the status is closed out. Should kick you out an email. Okay, I'll be sure to look into that. So, but this is where you would go into to report that concern.
So there is a little trick.
So I want to make sure that we're not just calling out. So I'm glad to have addressed that for you. Both maintenance of the sidewalks is the property owners. This is how you report some of those concerns as far as brush, overgrowth, anything that's coming onto the sidewalk, is right through this website here.
But I just want to highlight, there is a little trick to that, to see
Shauna lives in GovPilot every day, so
any like property records or what's going on. If Jim, you could just pull that back up.
from here,
Yeah, just go to planning and zoning's page. So there's an interactive map on the planning and zoning's page where you can kind of see.
we screen share now.
Go all the way down. Interactive map. And I think some of the records from code enforcement can be there, so you can
There's a
see.
layer.
Yeah, you could click the layers and you could see what has like open permits. If you like zoom into a property or you type in a property address, sometimes you can see what's going on. If there's like open permit, if there's like a code enforcement issue. We just on our end have to turn on that layer for that, but it's just like there was a report on like a property maintenance issue on the property, or they have a zoning permit open.
You can see
ready
where
for
I can click
construction.
on various properties around the borough, and then you can click on view property to see that even larger there.
Right, and then you can see what we have on the property or what's going on with the property.
So I don't want to get too hung up on
Yeah,
this,
so
though.
just to let you know that
We
it's.
can have a whole session on navigating the website.
Hi, I noticed, there wasn't any mention of Layton Avenue. I
Believe you
may
did.
be considered a neighborhood street, but I know during certain times of day, it's pretty much a through street. As people get off of Shrewsbury and take it out to, Newman Spring Road.
When you say mention of Layton Avenue, in regard to which part of this?
So, if there was any mention of Layton Avenue.
And I can say Layton Avenue, we did resurface in 2017 as part of the 2017 road program and incorporated back the speed humps that were there. There was also extensive striping that was put in front of the firehouse. So that's not really, I don't want to say it's not like up necessarily for resurfacing, but certainly if you wanted us to look at that or consider it for bikeway. But I know as part of the resurfacing, the ramps at all the intersections were reviewed and replaced, and the speed humps were installed.
The other thing I'd like to mention is I do a lot of walking in Red Bank, particularly between Layton and Maple. Average at least 5 times a week. And it's all very nice to talk about bikes being on the sidewalk and these electric bikes, but you know, is there any possibility of enforcement? Because particularly these electric bikes are dangerous and they ride right down the sidewalks. I mean, anything can be done about that on a practical basis?
Well, the police department does practically enforce when we do see violations. It's what we receive and apply for these grants for. That's definitely a portion of it.
Yeah, and I've seen bikes right by police officers. So,
Okay.
you know,
I'm newly assigned to the traffic unit. I'm definitely learning more and more, especially about the bicycles and their levels of speed now that we're coming out with new technology. And I have actually put it on one of my agendas of to-do lists to start enforcing things like that. As somebody who lives here as well, I understand that it is troublesome. So as soon as I get a little bit more acclimated and comfortable in this unit, I promise you that is something I'm going to turn my focus on.
and regular pedal bikes as well.
All of it.
I mean, oftentimes, you know, if somebody, you know, is approaching me and they'll at least slow down, you know, walking their bike would be better, I think, but, fine, but a lot of people, they come up from behind. Honestly, sometimes being on the sidewalk is more hazardous than crossing the street. And I do appreciate the fact that you put more crosswalks over Shrewsbury. I mean, for years, it was like 2.
Right,
And now you got many, and some are safer than others.
sure.
One by the Juanito's Market there is usually what I use if I'm not using the light, because I think cars are more used to stopping there than other places.
Okay.
I mean, it's been improvements over there, because I've been doing this for 10 years, right, since I retired, but anyway.
Well, greatly appreciate the feedback.
Yes, I'm just gonna. So many of you already know the council. West side of town is the side, especially Layton. I met with council members, business administrators, previous police chief, the new police chief. I'm just gonna read the list of solutions I have to make Layton Avenue specifically, that little section of the west side safer. I ride my bike, Layton, James Parker, I will not do it anymore, it's so dangerous, but let me walk you through what I've talked about for the last 5 years. So these are pretty much 3 solutions. One is Layton Avenue is a speed. It is a cut through of all of 520. It's a cut through of people coming from other sections from St. Ferry and the other side of Red Bank. And it has made it so dangerous for not only our students, but our crossing guards and other pedestrians. So the first solution is, again, this is nothing new, no left turn on 520 to late 7 in the morning to 10. These numbers come from other signs on the street. And then 2 to 6. So this would address getting some of this massive traffic off of a neighborhood road that the kids are going in and out of school. I do not have a student in the school, but I drive this road every day. And it's only a matter of time before somebody is seriously hurt or they already have it. So that's number one. The trailers, so disappointed that only the boat trailers were addressed in the ordinance. There's simple things you can do to make sure that our neighbors have the ability to have a job without allowing them to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment on our streets. It is ridiculous. So here's some solutions for the trailers. No greater than 10 feet. No signs on the back of them that block visibility. No enclosed trailers. You have an issue with a boat trailer, but not an enclosed trailer you can't see behind. No more than 1 trailer per residential address. Some of these people have 4 or 5 trailers on the street. That's not helping a mom and pop business. That is allowing a massive business to operate off of our streets at the safety of our children. All commercial vehicles registered out of town need to have a business permit to be on our streets. And absolutely no trailers that have an out-of-town registration, because if the car is in town that's not part of our town, that business can then go to wherever they store their trailer and pick it up in the morning. There's a humongous vehicle that is registered in the facility. Why is it that our children have to have unsafe streets for other businesses? So that's the trailers. You're aware there's 9 crossroads on Layton Avenue, 9, which means that there's almost 18 stop signs. One of them is not a part of the whole thing, which means you have people running stop signs. It's chaos in the morning. So again, these are nothing new. I've already discussed it with half of this town administration. Make some of these right-hand turn only during these hours, so they cannot be using Layton as a speedway. Our kids deserve better. They really do. The school. Why are all of these cars zipping all through all of our neighborhood streets. Mandate they come down River Road, put a police officer there, just like they do in other towns where they direct traffic. Kids, parents and buses in, they get them in and out. One road, get them out of the neighborhood. It's not a hard thing. Road debris. How many of you have been on the west side recently? There's road debris all day, every day. Our streets were flooded from this. I witnessed one trailer emptying your trailer on our streets, which are not permitted to put the debris on the other town streets, so they bring it to ours. Grass clippings. Why isn't every single person who's putting grass clippings on our streets fined? It's against the ordinance. It is clogging the drains. And nothing for nothing. We don't have epidemiology data on asthma on the west side, but I can tell you that it has to be pretty high because there's just dust and debris all over the place from all of the businesses using our streets. The liquor store. I've written, even, the new borough administrator. Our crossing guard needs sanctions on the street. So the humongous beer trucks that are there at 8 o'clock in the mornings, this poor woman is looking like this and cars are zipping in and out. That is the most dangerous intersection I've ever seen. I've talked to her many times. I've asked you to talk to her.
Well, the acting chief did.
It is a disaster. She's fearful of her life,
The acting chief went into the liquor store and addressed it directly with the owner.
but we still don't have it where.
But that's what we did.
It's every day still.
But that's what we did.
So we didn't solve the problem we talked about. It has to be solved. And then the only other thing is, and again, simple, every car coming off that side street from lunch break has to make a right-hand turn. That intersection is absolutely nuts at Fringe of James Parker. I am so afraid to ride a bike on that street. It's ridiculous. I wear blinking lights on my helmet, my bike, my back. I wear a bright yellow or bright pink jacket. I have been targeted by cars. There is not enough room for bikes and cars on that street. And because it is a cut through for the town, it is
Mike,
really.
is that addressed in?
So I know I'm very passionate about this, but I've been at this for 5 years, same solutions.
Is that one of the recommendations?
Simple solutions. And I get a commitment that you're gonna take a look and maybe implement it. I'm happy to work with the county with you for 520. I got the county to realign. Focused in Shrewsbury. It was a quick phone call and people look at Google Maps and they said, wow, we don't have basic lines here. And they were able to do it within a month. So I'm sorry for being so
No,
passionate.
I appreciate it.
But I am just like, I want to continue to live in an area where children's lives are not prioritized.
So one of the things that, I mean, I could address a couple of these things, but specifically the lunch break area that you spoke about, T&M, who's our other engineer, working on, they were assigned the specific grant that was received for that intersection. So that intersection is currently in design process right now.
What about late? That's your number one problem.
Okay. I just wanted to address, I'm going backwards.
River bump outs.
Mike had addressed the bump outs that are going to go on Layton as well, which is going to be traffic calming as well. Right.
Was talking to the crossing guard that's being.
Okay. So I want to reach everybody in the back there.
Hey everyone, my name is Harrison Bay. I'm a resident over on River Street, off of South Ridge, one of the intersections we were just mentioning. I've been there for 4 years. Been in Mon County my entire life, where I learned to ride a bike. It's where I continue to ride a bike. Ride bikes from influence from my mom, who got into it just right for 30 years. She's lucky to be here today. She was hit by a car in Seabright last year. We need like infrastructure and how it's a matter of life and death. We just lost a young man on South Ridge, and it's an absolute tragedy that we prioritize cars over people. there's a lot of, like you mentioned, simple things that can be done to improve safety. Things like daylighting, where you don't allow cars to park within a certain range of a crosswalk. Just improving signage, getting people to recognize that there's other people out here than those in cars. We're living in a time where cars are becoming bigger, distracted driving is on a rise, and studies have shown that drivers actually view people on bikes as less human. And that's a problem because, like Patrolman McConnell mentioned, the law is you can't ride a bike on the sidewalk. You ask any of the parents in this room or in the towns, if they want their kids on the roads on a bike, it's a joke, an absolute joke. And whether or not it's the law doesn't make it right. We need improvements in the infrastructure. And it can't happen in 5 years like these projects take, because your life is a minute away from a distracted driver. There are people who want to just get to work, just enjoy leisure. I commute from Red Bank to Pedestrian where I work on my bike. Very thankful for those new bike lanes and some sharrows that have been put in. Just closing thoughts, I want to advocate for actual infrastructure. You know, paint and signage is great, but paint is not protection. Paint's not going to stop an SUV from veering into the lane while they're checking Instagram or TikTok. But anything matters. Anything is improvement from what we have now. I really appreciate this, everyone in this room coming together and being an advocate for it. Just looking forward to a better future.
I'm gonna piggyback off that. I actually myself am lucky today, and I've been an advocate for increased safety in town since I had a terrifying incident probably in 2010 on Broad Street, right in front of Red Bank Catholic, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. It's a sunny day, full visibility. I very, calmly approached the crosswalk. I was running pretty slow this day. Sometimes I go fast, maybe I feel careless, but on this particular day, I was going slow. A car stopped to let me go. And as I was very gingerly stepping into the crosswalk, they leaned on their horn and stopped me in my tracks. I looked at them because I was like, why are you honking? The car behind them, a gigantic souped up pickup truck, went around them and just blew through the crosswalk. While I was in, had that car not honked, I probably would have been hospitalized or dead. I mean, the car just blew through. And that was over 10 years ago. A few weeks ago, you guys can check because I called the police. I was actually at Bergen at New Crosswalks by Wells Fargo. It was a nice Saturday morning, again, sunny, full visibility. I was in the crosswalk with my 2-year-old and 7-year-old on their scooters. A car had stopped to let us cross, and a gigantic pickup truck behind him leaned on his horn because he had stopped while we were in the crosswalk. After we got out of the crosswalk and the car resumed, he blew through the stop sign, the 4-way stop there, and just went down the street at about 50 miles an hour. And I called into the police at that time. When my daughter was first born 7 years ago, and I started jogging with her and strolling in town, I would email Darren McConnell how many times cars did not yield to us in crosswalks as I was crossing. I was in the middle of the road. A woman with a stroller. So I appreciate all the efforts here, but we need the information that you gave. We need that everybody. This room does not need to hear about the rules. People outside this room that aren't paying attention, that are on Instagram, need to know. Also, we do need more enforcement. I would love to know about the increased capacity when we see people with these brands. Because ever since I got my learner's permit, I knew you follow the rules and vary them. Because if you don't, you will get pulled. So why don't we do that? Because honestly, I am as careful as anybody, and as hard as I try ever since my scare, there's not enough I can do. If some asshole in a pickup truck, I'm sorry, is just gonna disregard crosswalk rules because he wants to get word is going on. And the RDC students that presented here a few weeks ago made an excellent point that I think all the adults out there need to hear. Leave yourself extra time if you're going through red light. You cannot speed through here. We are not New York City. It is not acceptable to drive like this. I'm on Hudson Avenue, which is also a cut. And I've complained about that many times. And because kids are going to school in the morning when people are cruising down that street trying to get to work and bypass Broad Street. So I also appreciate the ability to have this forum and everybody's focus on the issue.
Yeah, I was a victim in February. I'm alive today by a miracle. If it was an elderly or a child crossing Chestnut and Shrewsbury, there would be fatal accident for sure. And I was hospitalized, yes, and 3 months immobilized because I fractured an ankle. It's SUV, right there at 10:30 in the morning, hit me. And I was in a crosswalk. She didn't see me at all. She was going too fast. And exactly your experience. And I appreciate the panel. I mean, I wrote a little synopsis because I live in Red Bank many years with my husband. We're big advocate of traffic safety, and we have done a lot of volunteer work for the community. And I mean, I would like to read it, not to have an audience, but because it's very brief, but it's really basically what you said, that the enforcement is very important. It doesn't have to be a punishment, like maybe community service and also education. Maybe the public library and schools can teach from start children, parents, and community what are the rules and like the speed limit enforced. Because if this woman was going, like SUVs don't see pedestrian. I mean, this is a residential pedestrian town. A car can kill a pedestrian, not vice versa. And
we had lived in Pleasanton for, because I had a work assignment. And I never seen enforcement pedestrians that favored pedestrians as I ever saw it in Pleasanton County. You just think about going through a crosswalk and there's somebody standing at the end wanting to cross. It was 10 years ago, a $650.
I just want to,
I want to piggyback off of that too. I live on Spring Street and my kids ride their bikes all the time. My brother, his kids do as well. And speeding is a definite issue. I mean, I cannot tell you how many close calls there are, either for pedestrians or anybody on a bike. And I know that there's some solutions here today, but I don't know if there's any idea. Maybe more, you go through Monmouth Beach, you go through Fairhaven, there are signs that say 25 strictly enforced, and when somebody goes above that, it says slow down. I feel like if we had more of those on our streets, it would just remind the drivers that it's time to slow down. Like, I feel like it's become more of a car city than a bike city or a pedestrian city, and that's what people go to, I think. It's to walk, it's to be part of a town. Yep. And there's towns surrounding us. I rode my bike from my house on Spring to the market in Fairhaven the other day, and I felt safer because there were more bikes on the road because the speed limit is strictly enforced. And in Red Bank, I get nervous every day. So I don't know, this is something, this is the solution to bring.
Spring Street, yeah. Because I know that Spring Street has been a topic of discussion just as, no, it wasn't just you, yeah, but it was other individuals that I know Captain Frazee has met with. And it's probably on your guys' radar at this point, right? Darren, you want to take that?
Yeah, just to quickly address some of those concerns. Spring Street's a street that we have consistently conducted radar and speeding studies on. I don't have the results of those studies handy at this moment in time, but our efforts are focused on data and a lot of these circumstances. There's a rotating list of traffic enforcement details that the police department conducts on a daily basis based on complaints from residents that are then followed up with traffic studies where we put a covert radar counter out on the street. Driving past, you wouldn't even know it's there. It's out there studying the actual speeds of the vehicles, and then we determine an enforcement factor. Streets that do have an enforcement issue, streets that do have a speeding problem, and we utilize our resources accordingly. Unfortunately, we don't have unlimited resources to put on every street every time of the day, but we do target streets that do have a problem at specific times of the day. That's how we prioritize our resources. If you do have a concern on your street, I encourage you to report it to the police department, to the traffic safety unit, it's then looked into, and then we take action accordingly.
I just wanted to add that they ride their bikes with their kids to the primary school every day from the the east side to the west side, so they're going to be great people to talk to if you ever want to talk about cycling experience in town.
I've seen you on about before.
Yeah.
I know I want to get to a lot of everybody. We may not be able to get to everybody tonight, but
How you doing? My name is Nick. I live on Waverly Place. I just want to give a quick shout out to the Public Works. I know they're going around and painting the yellow curving with regard to no parking near the intersections. I know sight distance is a big issue when it comes to pedestrian vehicular traffic conflicts. I would implore the borough and the police department to look at Title 39 and those restrictions and make sure that they are reconciled with parking and also the rules and regulations. Living across from the YMCA, I see it every day that people are trying to cross the crosswalk. A vehicle might stop and someone wants to cut around them because they think there's nothing there. You know, the other instance is there's a parked car adjacent to the crosswalk where it shouldn't be. So you have to step out into the roadway, into Route 35 in order for someone to actually see a pedestrian crossing there. I would also implore that the mayor and council and the professionals talk to the stakeholders. You know, you have the synagogue, you have the YMCA, you have Red Bank Catholic school kids traveling over to the Count Basie Fields. You have the middle school athletic departments traveling to the Count Basie Fields to use the facilities there. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic along the Route 35 corridor. And I'm not sure what the borough is doing with those crosswalks at Waverly, at Irving, and some of those places down further. And also, you know, coordinating with New Jersey Transit with regard to pedestrian and vehicular traffic at those intersections as well. So just some comments there.
thank you. Appreciate it. So,
Steve Scobie, I'm speaking, not on behalf of the school board, but I'm speaking on behalf of crossing guards. You know, we're past 20 years. It's kind of like deja vu because a lot of these issues have been brought to the council, current, past, people that are sitting on the dais. And I see a lot of faces here that actually got them to come out because they were disenchanted because we bring issues up to the council year over year. Bridge, Arthur Place is a part cut through when I live there. So the one thing I have to say is all this spending, yes, no, and different, comes back again to enforcement. You can have a nice crosswalk, but who's enforcing the car from parking in the intersection of the crosswalk? I mean, you've been a great help. I think you helped Cedar Street. My wife almost got hit because she couldn't see. And then someone else, and you got it painted. You got a curved yellow painted. But that's because I was an advocate. There's a lot of streets, just I walk my dog every day down that street, and they're still curved, not painted. There's still signs or you can't read them because the sun hit them. So all these ideas are great, but just as everybody else says, we want enforcement. And I think obviously things have changed. We got new people up here, new faces up here, which is great. So I think everybody's hoping that you have a commitment because it's not going to be an pull-up video from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Dr. James and Bridge, Arthur and 35. We constantly bring it up. So now that more people are here, this is great. See faces that have come up, new faces are coming up, but we definitely want a commitment because this is absurd that we're going to think of having, let's spend more money on a bike path. But you know what? Nobody feels safe on Bridge. You use Bridge as an example. I can't tell you how many times I got hit with a bike when I'm walking my dogs. My little guy doesn't go that fast. He always got hit. And because you all mentioned there's a bike path there, they don't feel safe to use it. So if you build it and they don't come, what the heck are you building it for? Right? So again, it's really amazing how other people, just reiterating what I've said over the years, look at other towns who really make enforcement a priority. And I don't think you guys put on the badge to just drive around town for fun. I think you guys wholeheartedly want to make our town safe, and that's great. That's awesome. But I think, you know, we got to show the town more to make them feel safe. You might be giving out tickets. I think you mentioned that you have. Maybe, you know, word of mouth, hey, it's getting more enforced. You know, let's say I got a ticket, I'll complain to my friends. Oh, you know what? I did something stupid. Watch out on Bridge. Go slow, go slow. Word of mouth in this town is crazy. That's maybe more than just not saying that you're giving out, you know, I don't see the stats. Back in the day, there used to be stats when we used to have the workshop meetings, say these, how many tickets went out for this and this, how many tickets went out for that. So it gave some, you know, facts behind it. Just, you know, stories. Oh yeah, we're doing it. But how do you do it? Prove that you do it. How many did you grab? This side or that side or on this street after the fact? Because that will make people more confident in what you're doing and not just, oh, it's the same old thing. You know, we're just having a forum. They're gonna give ideas, we'll show ideas, and then, you know what, God forbid, somebody gets hit again. So I really hold you guys to the fire. You know, I do. I know a lot of people here are anxious and happy that you're doing this, but I think everybody here will definitely hold you to the fire. So I appreciate your time. And as you know, I have pictures of everything. I got all the crosswalks, I got all bridge, I got all the fire hydrants, I show it, I email to you guys. I know you call dispatch, but you know what? Just walk, I'll have to go for a walk out, show you everything on bridge. Thank you.
Thanks. The orange.
So I just wanted to say, I know everybody's up here, like, kind of like Sue said, we're coming up with ideas of how we can put more bike paths and this and that, but no one's gonna use them unless they feel safe. So again, what I'm concerned about is just in this past 6 months, I think there were the one that he mentioned, there was also another one in Red Bank. And I think the first step is like us owning that. So I was hoping to come here today to understand some of the data. Like these are, unfortunately, these are the deaths, these are the accidents. I want to know what has been going on because I know this just by looking around town and anecdotally looking at things and seeing the traffic increase, but it'd be good to see that data of what's going on really. So like understanding that and us all accepting that and owning that before we start trying to solve the problem. We walking in Red Bank, I'll tell you right now, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Board of Ed, but I am speaking on as a parent of 3 kids that grew up in this town. I'm scared to death for my children to walk around. I live right about 2 minutes from here near Teak. I'm scared for my kids to walk in town, to walk to the middle school than school. I have been for years. And I'll tell you now, there's more people driving their kids to school at the middle school and primary school because they will not bike to school and they will not walk to school because they can't cross Shrewsbury Avenue. So there has to be something, can we look at, like you mentioned, Fairhaven. I wouldn't drive in Fairhaven first got my license either. They enforce 25 miles per hour through the whole town, period. And it's enforced. Everyone's gotten tickets there. So like, what can we do better to enforce this? Because people won't walk.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important. Darren mentioned that he does have some insight into pedestrian stats.
Right. Just prior to this meeting, I looked at the last 5 years of data for the police department. We've had a total of 54 pedestrian involved motor vehicle crashes and 39 bicycle crashes over the last 5 years, which averages out to approximately 11 pedestrian related accidents or crashes rather, and about 8 bicycle related crashes.
Is the year-over-year stats going up or going down? Or?
I don't know. I looked at the average for the 5 years and the total. However, the vast majority of those crashes are low speed, minor injury crashes. There have been several more serious injuries and unfortunately one recent fatality involving a pedestrian. So hopefully that helps a little bit with some of the data. I apologize, I don't have more. That's just what I have off the top of my head.
And I think it's important too, right? 54 pedestrian involved, 39 bike accidents, 11 average on year. It's too much, right? It's too much. I mean, when we're sitting here up here saying that we received a $120,000 grant to look into, to analyze how we get that vision zero, right? That's what our goal is. I mean, it truly is. We wouldn't have applied for it if we weren't going to actually do something with it. So, things, we talked about the cultural shift. There absolutely has to be a cultural shift in what's going on. People are distracted. People are clearly distracted. People are too much in a rush, right? People are going around crosswalk vehicles that are stopped for people in crossing areas and just going around them. Listen, the police department cannot be everywhere, especially for a situation like that. But why culturally is that happening? And I think it's important for us to understand that education, enforcement, absolutely enforcement. The laws are the laws, and that's something I'm going to implore our police department to do and discuss that wholeheartedly after this meeting. That what are the stats? I want to look back and see what's year over year, what's happening. Are we going down? Are we going up? Clearly there's issues, right? So we're addressing some of these issues. We're hearing your concerns. I've been in the borough now for 6 months, right? A lot of you have lived here for years and years and years. But it's my goal to understand a little bit more about what's going on here. I walk these streets too. I go out during the day when I can get away from the desk. I want to feel safe when I'm walking the streets or going out in town. It's incredibly important. And that's why we are here. I do want to get to people who haven't had a chance to speak yet. Oh, I'm sorry, in the blue here. Yeah, I did. And then I'll go back over here.
Yeah, I also want to thank you all for even just holding this forum instead of, just having it randomly at a council meeting. There's an excellent book, if you haven't read it, called Walkable City. Everybody who's up there should read it, but it's educational for everybody because this is very complicated, as we know, logistically as well as the culture. But there's a couple of things that I guess popped into my head. We're making the assumption that every street in Red Bank has to be two-way. Some streets could be one way and then the traffic would be wider to do more things. We're making the assumption that you can all park on both sides of the street. Some places maybe just make it one side. And one thing we could do now is what they do in Freehold. If you go down Main Street in Freehold, where it intersects with South, they have an all-way red light for the pedestrians. It lasts for, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds. Everything stops and the pedestrians move. So like Shrewsbury Avenue and James Parker Boulevard would be at the top of my list, as well as Maple Avenue and Front Street. Those are two terrible places to cross.
Thank you.
But,
Right here. Yeah.
Hi, Houses right here in front of Walgreens where the church is. People that are not familiar with that corner where Wall and Water and Pearl meet. They leave the shopping center and they go not in front of the church, but to the side of the church. There are cars that are flying around the bend. You can see the sidewalk, because I see this all the time. The tire marks they cut right over the sidewalk because nobody can see people coming from that direction. Once I saw about 10 kids crossing over to their rent-a-car, and these cars are flying around, and nobody sees this. I can't believe that it's not bollards up. Everybody understands. You leave here.
I come that way every day, yeah.
Every time I see somebody walking, I want to say, please don't cross this corner.
Right.
So that was.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Alan?
I just want to pick on that. This is such a huge subject. 30, 40 points around that. I'm just going to pick on one. And that is, I think we've got to be very careful. Don't go barking at the wrong tree. A resident over here complained about cycling on the sidewalks. And that in itself is really just a symptom. And it's a symptom of dangerous streets. People ride on the sidewalks because the streets are so dangerous. And just as an example of how dangerous these streets in New Jersey, in this town, I've just ridden over about a mile from my home to this meeting. I'd like to start outside. In that ride, I am 4 times more likely to be either killed or seriously injured than if I'd done the same journey. You can tell from my accent, I'm not from here, in my hometown in the UK. In fact, if I lived in Europe, it would be even safer. We've got a cultural problem. We have a cultural problem, and the problem is cars, or at least the misuse of cars. We have to remember as well that Red Bank was largely laid out before cars. Every one of these streets was designed for pedestrians, horse and car, and incidentally, bicycles, which predate cars by about 50 years. It's cars that are the interlopers. And looking at cycling on the side, last year, 209 pedestrians and cyclists were killed in New Jersey. Every single one of those was as an interaction with a car. And the interesting thing is, somebody's asking about what's happening with the road statistics. Actually, the statistics are going down. But here's the big thing, pedestrians and cyclists are going up as people are in these big juggernaut type vehicles, like tanks that are often invade Poland. Of course, they're totally safe. It's the rest of the people who have equal right to use the streets who suffer. This is a huge problem. It's not going to be answered today. And, you know, I heard this debate here. There are people in this town that have a lot of expertise. I learned to ride a bike in 1956. I think that's 68 years ago. Okay, so I've been this debate's mum. And I've probably ridden and walked in about 20 different countries. This is by far the worst, most dangerous place I've ever been. I've ridden around Rome, I've ridden around Paris, here, Red Bank, it's lethal. Now, I'll ride the streets of Red Bank because I had that experience. And you know what? I don't keep right. I do not do that. Because that is dangerous. And in fact, it's against the advice, even of the DOT in New Jersey, is that you take your lane. You know, there's a lot of bad advice going on, even from the top table. And I just wonder how many of you cycled here tonight or ever cycle around this town. Because, you know, I'll make an offer. I'm sure Mr. Badel will. We'll take on a bike ride around Red Bank. See how you like it. Because you won't.
Thank you, Al.
Sorry? Oh, you have, yeah, right. So, you know, this is a big thing. And if you think we've done enough tonight, or you've done enough tonight to make Red Bank a better place for vulnerable road users, for people who ride bicycles, for people who walk, for people who have to push, I was going to say prams, but you'll know what I mean, or push wheelchairs. It's going to be a long, long journey. And also, my last point is complete streets. Complete streets was adopted by this town, I think, 2010, which is now 14, heading for 15 years ago. What benefits have we seen from complete streets? Complete Streets is a great program. Complete Streets doesn't necessarily mean you need a bike lane in a street. You know, you can make streets safe without bike lanes, just by sheer design. I know there's at least 3 councillors here who've been on Complete Streets training. They know this. Streets can be made safer by design. A lot of the design things are counterintuitive. You know what? You make streets narrower, you make them safer. You also do not cut down on the amount of traffic that can use that street. There's such a lot. And the other thing about Complete Streets is it is probably now about 20 years out of date. And you have to look to Europe and you have to look to things like low traffic neighborhoods in places like Barcelona, London, Paris. Look what's happened in Paris, you know, when they've adopted these schemes. We're a little town of barely 2 square miles. And we have 4 times the accident death rate. That's what you have to deal with. That's what we have to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to wrap it up. I appreciate everybody coming tonight. I think it's really important that we were able to do this. I think it's important that we got the feedback from you. We wanted to obviously present a couple of things that were going on around town, some of the funding opportunities that we are going to take advantage of. I do want to just say that the idea is not just to close the book here tonight and say, thanks for coming and we're all set here. You know, we clearly have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work that has been on paper for a long time, I think. I think it's about starting to execute some of those plans and seeing from a comprehensive approach, specifically with our designs, our street designs, how we can start to accomplish some more of these points that we really need to execute a little bit further. Looking at our enforcement, looking at our statistics to see if we are heading in the right direction. I'm not committed to make that claim tonight, but something that I certainly as the borough manager will look into. Again, please don't hesitate to continue the feedback. Send us your comments, your concerns, addressing areas, certain streets that need to be looked into. I think that we really do have a committed police department, our public works, that utilize their resources as best they can to try and get a really good result. These guys can't be everywhere all the time, but we want to make sure that we're addressing the areas that are of great concern to you.
So contacts to say that, okay, this happens on a daily basis, that I was in a crosswalk with a light saying walk and someone went through. How do I?
What's the contact
what do we
person for
report
that?
to?
The police department.
Okay,
The-
well, I think
the dispatch.
give me your direct.
Well, the police dispatch line.
Yeah, you would contact police dispatch if it's an ongoing issue,
It's.
No, no, understand, if it's something that's actively occurring, you can contact 911 or the police dispatcher. If it's something that occurred on a daily basis, that's a routine issue, contact the police dispatch, they'll forward you to the traffic safety sergeant, who will then look into the matter, assign a patrol car to monitor that area during those times, whatever the case might be. But that's where the conversation started, is contacting our dispatcher, who will get you to the right person. Take those complaints every day and we take them all serious.
Yeah, but it's always different spot.
We thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. And again, thanks.